Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Around the Halo episode 6 from Little Flower Media and our friends at University of St. Thomas. I am Bearded McMagic, and I will be hosting you this evening in a fantastic panel that we have coming up. We've got some new friends, and we've got some old acquaintances, and it's going to be quite entertaining. What you're going to notice tonight that's a little bit different is that there is no Jonathan Blevins. He has a speaking engagement. He is away. He has left us the keys to the castle, so to speak. I could stream anything I want. I mean, instead of doing Around the Halo, we could just play Power Washing Simulator. I mean, it's entirely up to me. I'm totally in charge, which is a mistake on his part, but we're going to move forward anyway with the show. Just as a reminder, we have notifications off for the show when we do this live. While we do appreciate all the support, of course, we are just trying to keep the flow of the show going, but we will engage with chat and of course enjoy all of you guys having lively conversation over there as per usual. So let's get the rundown of what's happening tonight with our panel. We are starting off with the Bobby Angel. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. Friends,
Fantastic.
New friends, enemies, frenemies. We're all here. I'm happy to be back.
I think frenemies really sums it up, because then you can be on the fence about any particular person. It's totally understandable. And thank you for joining us tonight as well. You are technically the sub for John, which means that it is predetermined that you can't win because John doesn't win this game. I don't know why. It's not personal.
Wow.
It's just that I don't like him. Is that
How?
personal?
Yeah.
How is it not personal?
Yeah, I don't. That's a good point. Now that I think about it, it seems very personal. And
But I will
owe an
carry.
apology.
I will carry this cross.
Yeah, good.
The burden is light.
Good luck to you. And of course, Darnell Miller at Darnell Lorenzo. It's fantastic to see you again as well. How has your life been over the past couple weeks? Are you just editing video until you can't see color anymore, or?
Pretty much. The world only exists in black and white, which is not the best place to be given everything that's going on the past couple of days. So
totally understandable. Darnell, of course, is one of the producers at University of St. Thomas Mac Studios and helps us out with a lot of projects. And occasionally I email him and be like, hey, can I have a video from this project? And you're like, well, I'm only working on 90 things at once, so let me see if I can pull that off. But I always appreciate you, my friend, and your unique viewpoints on the show. Moving right along, we have, of course, Joel Stepanek at Chasing Humility. How's it going?
It's going well.
Great.
Bobby, next time you can at me with the frenemies comment. The first time I met Bobby Angel, he gave me a giant sword and asked me to sit in a really righteous looking office chair, and I felt like a man.
That is sweet.
I've never met Darnell in person, and so I believe that he's real, but he could also be AI, and I have not yet determined.
Yeah.
And I will say
It's
that
the hair.
it is.
Computer good looks, man. Computer good looks.
The hair.
It may be unrealistic. That's just what I'm saying. Like, you look at things like, man, is that realistic?
Wow.
And I'm not exactly sure. So, and then I've got to say, the next person you're going to introduce, when I met one, he knows all the greatest spots in Houston and has taken me to many. And the first time I heard him speak is one of the best talks I've ever heard anybody give. So friends, enemies.
Well, we better hurry up.
I don't know. They're my friends, McClure.
I don't understand.
I don't care if they're robots.
I want a sword, though,
Alex,
bro.
it is great to meet you, sir. Coming to us from a fantastic art installation that I think doubles as your office. I mean, how cool is that?
Absolutely.
You're new to the show, so tell us a little bit about your background and what you do, if you don't mind.
Hey, my name is Dr. Alex Gotay. Everybody calls me Dr. G. I am actually at work. I just got done with XLT. I'm a youth minister here at Prince of Peace in Houston. Been married 23 years. I know it looks like I'm 25, but got married at 3. I have 4 amazing. That shouldn't be funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's messed up.
It's
not
the absurdity.
Up,
it's okay.
Yeah, no, it's just hilarious. I'm joking, half joking. But I have 4 amazing boys. I was a Marine, so forth, get to travel, speak, wrote a book, all the different stuff. Yeah. Convert to the faith, no more no less. Black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 3rd degree. And I'm in Houston, so for those of you, you said frenemies and all this stuff. I know I'm gonna make a lot of enemies, but just in case, I just want to, just in
That's
case.
right.
I didn't
That's
know,
right.
because I know some people don't pay attention, because baseball isn't their sport, So I just know I'm Puerto Rican, and so I played baseball my whole life, watch baseball, so forth. I just want you guys to know that we're the best, and I mean that. I mean that humbly. I mean that humbly.
Yeah, but
so,
also accurate.
Just pushing every button possible.
Just keep running with it.
God, I love it so
That's
much.
That's what we do.
So, man.
Oh, that
Straight
is
face the
amazing.
whole time.
Fantastic.
This isn't on the books, but I feel like I have to bring it up because it went around in every text chain that I talked about today. As a totally conversation starter that doesn't involve any points yet, is there a reason that daylight savings needs to continue to exist, or is it just making everyone's lives more difficult? Darnell, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, just cut it. This is a hard cut. Like, we're not farmers anymore. Like, we don't need to worry about that stuff. We have electricity. Like, there's no reason that once a year we should gain an hour, and then another time a year we lose an hour, and we're just like, well, we got to make it up. Like, it's too much work. I'm not even done changing all the clocks in my house, and we don't have that many.
I know, it's unreal.
It's a waste of time. Is this too much effort? Not worth it, man.
It's too many buttons to press on multiple devices to go back and take care of it.
Yep.
And
The coffee
what's the
maker's
worst
going to be
part
wrong
about
for
it,
half the
Joel?
year.
The worst part about it is that I live in the great state of Arizona where we do not have daylight savings time. We threw off the yoke of daylight savings time years ago.
Yeah.
And this means, though, that when everybody's time changes, you don't experience a time change because 11:30 to you is still 11:30, right? You've fallen ahead or sprung back or whatever you call it. But for me, that meeting that you scheduled, now I have to change my time.
Exactly.
So though I'm beholden to other people, so I would like it to just be abolished because it would prevent me from missing as many meetings as I do the week after the clocks change.
Maybe you should only do things locally and then secede from the union. What do you say?
I mean, that's a very Texas answer.
I'm like, why are you leaning into Texas like that?
I mean, I don't know. It just
you
seems
can't
like
steal
a
our
great
shit.
idea.
3 people from that state who are all like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it tomorrow.
Bobby's going to get this one. What is the worst part about daylight savings?
As a parent, it's a lose-lose. Because
You're
gonna
get it, Bobby.
Amen.
no matter what, they're like staying up later or they're waking up earlier. So there is no like, oh, I get sleep now.
Doesn't exist. It only makes it worse.
But my kids are old enough now where you can start to have real conversations. So trying to explain to the 6 and the 8-year-old, like, why do we change the clocks? And they're just staring at me like, the government tells you to change the clocks. I'm like, I know. It's stupid.
Wait till you hear what else the government tells you to do.
It's the worst thing they can make you do.
I know.
That's
But
amazing.
speaking of Texas, I throw it back to Dr. G.
So I guess I'm the only one. Like, I don't mind. I mean, I'm being honest with you. And as you were sitting there saying that, I'm a military brat. Like, I literally was born at Fort Hood and so forth. So y'all like the government told you. Like, I grew up going to government schools and like I realized through the years that is definitely given me a different perspective than a lot of people. I just never thought about the time issue, to be honest with you. So, I'm one of those, like, it is what it is. Like, let's do this. We got to fall back, spring forward. But I honestly forget all the time. I'm being honest with you. Every year I have to ask my wife, So, I'm on the fence. It doesn't really matter too much to me.
And that's probably correct. We're probably coming from a special place of comfort where we can complain about the clock changing twice a year.
Amen. Amen.
My life.
Although I feel bad for you, Joel. I feel bad for you, Joel.
Yeah,
sorry,
that's a rough.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Professional life.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Okay, we are going to start the show officially now and go around the halo with our first topic. Just as a reminder, before we get this started on the first topic, I should remind everyone who is watching that we are going to dole out points as the conversation goes on. They don't really matter. All of the guests are pandering directly to me. I try to keep it as fair and honest as possible. Joel usually pushes it over the top by talking bad about Apple. So I feel like, Dr. G, I should give you the inside track on that. Like, if you can mix that in about how stupid that company is, you go right ahead.
Okay, Roger that from my Mac.
And then with your AirPods in.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, that makes sense.
But we don't take it super seriously and mostly just encourage the positive conversation. So that's the deal for everybody at home. And now all of our quote unquote competitors are on the same page. We're going to go around the halo with our first topic, starting with Bobby Angel, the most wonderful time of year. So here's the deal. I know Joel wanted to misdirect you with it being about Christmas decorations, but the most wonderful time of the year, as we know, is, of course, election season. In the United States, elections were held yesterday for House, Senate, and governor seats. Several key races in various areas remain too close to call as the votes are split nearly evenly between many candidates. In some cases, the difference is in the thousands, and candidates have taken to social media to encourage supporters and in some cases to lay the groundwork for possible legal action. Bobby, are elections getting more complicated in the United States? Are they getting worse? What exactly is happening?
It definitely seems like it's getting worse. What seemed to be pretty trite, pretty like kind of boring fanfare, like at least growing up for me, is now this like really rage-filled like, bracket like competition. And it's important. Like it's important like who we elect, but at the same time, there's definitely this new animosity and I think it's because we've lost. Let me just jump to the theology because I have a super useful philosophy degree. We've lost the worship of God in culture at widespread, and so we have to worship something. So for a lot of people, it's politics, and so everything gets dialed up to 11. And so, yeah, it's just weird because it's like there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of like infighting, there's a lot of now like we're even questioning even if the elections are valid, which is really a scary place to have a democracy. And so it seems, and then you got the internet, then you got like social media, you got like, it's not just I physically go there, you've got mail-in ballots, you've got machines that don't work. So it's kind of like it's like a Charlie Fox of, it seems like there's no new normal anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. I would agree with you there, and it does seem certainly like there's an animosity involved that maybe didn't exist before. Darnell, because these races are so close, is there any way for an incoming candidate to succeed when exactly half of the people nearly have voted against you and your platform? What do you think?
I mean, I think it makes it challenging, right? Is there ever really quote unquote success in politics? I think if the country makes it another year without completely falling apart, I guess we can count that.
I see what you did there. Yeah, good point.
But I just think that's the status quo, right? I think just the number of people who are actively hating you at any given moment is just kind of amped up and increased. But I think there's always opposition, always people pushing back. But I think that should be a healthy piece of that, right? Like that's why we had that idea of the systems of checks and balances. We need people to push agendas in either direction and people to counter so that we find a middle ground where we can meet. And it's harder to get that middle ground as we have people who refuse to give, but like we need to do something, right? Like, and I think in the things where it really matters, like things are getting done. And I think in the local levels, right? Like when we're thinking of like, well, how much do we want to allocate towards parks and how much do we want to allocate towards education? Like things are happening there. And that is more important than what's happening at a national level. So I think we need to kind of rein that in, right? Like what is happening locally and how does that work?
Right.
What's happening on a grand scale? And does that matter as much? And in some cases, like maybe yes, but in most cases, the local is more important, and things tend to not be that amped up on a local level. People actually need to get stuff done because it's stuff that's affecting them on a daily basis in their daily lives.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. It's kind of like one of these things that you feel like you need to get out of the way in order to actually hear what's going on around it. Joel, where is the breaking point on the rhetoric in these elections? Is that something that you can even break through in order to get to actual message?
I think here's the reality that we all forget is America was founded on petty election rhetoric. Alexander Hamilton, who you all know is on your $10 bill, was born out of wedlock. And so his political opponents use that as an insult. They would say things like, "Yet I lose all patience when I think of the expletive brat of a Scotch peddler daring to threaten to undeceive the world in their judgment of Washington by writing a history of his battles and campaigns." Or you could talk about how people talked about Ulysses S. Grant, who they claimed Grant is a drunkard, a man of vile habits and no ideas. People talked about other Democratic candidates, calling them pot-bellied, mutton-headed, dim-witted, whatever. And again, now these things are comical to us, and we think of people in fancy slacks walking around in shoes that don't fit correctly. But the truth is, this type of rhetoric has always existed in the United States. And I think that's what makes it so difficult to break through, is there is a long-standing tradition of insulting the other person and using fear to make people not vote for somebody rather than resting on your own merits. To break through that, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to do it, because we're wired to actually respond to those types of stimuli more. Fear moves people more than hope does, as long as the status quo is just okay. If people's lives are crummy, hope is going to inspire them. But if people's lives are just fine, middle of the road, C average, fear is going to push them the other way. And the people who are running for office, they absolutely know it. Those pot-bellied, dim-witted, cucumber-souled nitwits.
Cotton-headed ninny muggins.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Watch
you
your
made
mouth.
a
Watch
great
your mouth.
point, actually, that trash talk is part of our national pastime. And so
Yeah.
it's weird to think that it would just go away magically because we're all fed up with it in this particular venue. So Alex, are we ever going to see a time where we wake up after election day and we know exactly who won, or are some of these markets just destined to be a constant battleground conflict?
No, I mean, I think Joel brings up a really good point. I think if you look at how our country was even started, it was, no, we're not doing this. We're going to do our own thing. And then to kind of piggyback off of what Bobby was talking about, everybody has a voice now. Social media is giving a voice to literally everybody and anybody. And that shock and awe factor, if anybody takes just a basic, what is it, like a selling course, business course, and whenever you have something you want to sell, I can't think of the word, but anyway, what they'll talk about is even bad publicity is good publicity. And people need to, I don't think people will wrap their mind around, look, their goal is to get into office. Sometimes, and then one more thing before I go down that road, I think we've just lost the art of just communicating. I was thinking about something you guys said, and it made me, my response was, I grew up on a military base, and then our first thing with politics, I remember the first time I asked my pops, and I'll think about it, my pops was 20 years in the military special forces. My grandfather was in the Marine Corps and in the Army. My little brother's a Ranger right now. But check out the answer. I remember I'm about 15 or so, and I'm like, yo, Pops. That's how I talk to my father. I'm like, yo, Pops, what do you think about us Democratic, Republicans? I'm like, what do you think? And his response was really interesting to me. And I hold it to my heart is it's at the end of the day, we got to do our part. But at the end of the day, the people are going to make the moves, and we just got to try to do our best in all of this. Pops is an atheist, self-learned man, and so forth. And I'm gonna be honest with you, sometimes in these moments, I go back to that. I'm like, look, man, the bottom line, we're always gonna be running in each other's mouth. We're not always gonna get along with things and so forth. But in the end, we do have a privilege that we do get to vote. I think sometimes we forget that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but you're right. Bobby made a good point, because I got a theology degree too, and there's we literally have made politics God. We can say whatever we want to. That's what's going on in today's world, and I think that's why people can't dialogue and disagree and so forth. So yeah, if I answered the question.
Yes, no, you nailed it. I think we'd all be better off if there was more of a speech and debate mandate background as part of everyone's upbringing, because it's one of those things where there's not enough hey, let's make sure we argue, but also respect the person on the other side, and it seems to get lost a little bit. Okay, moving on to topic number 2, Unfriended. Meta announced that it is laying off 11,000 employees, or roughly 13% of its workforce. The news comes as TikTok has been squeezing the social media market, and Meta has largely failed in a costly expansion into the metaverse. Zuckerberg said this is a necessary market correction to account for rapid expansion during COVID, when e-commerce and social media saw heavy increases. Twitter, upon transferring ownership to Elon Musk, also finished a round of layoffs. Darnell, is this a shift in the social media landscape, or is it really, like they're talking about, just a market correction?
I think there's like a tiniest amount of actual market correction there. I do know that during the pandemic, everybody spent all of their time on social media because there was literally nothing else that you can do without leaving your house, right? But I think Zuckerberg's also just kind of, I think he's seen the signs, right? I know, like, we've known for years that most of these executives don't actually let their kids use iPhones. They don't let their kids use iPads. They're not on social media. They send them to those schools that are, technology free. And they've been doing this for years because they know the effects it's having. And more parents are starting to recognize that, hey, like, there's issues that are happening with social media, and we want to change the way we need to approach it. So they're limiting their own kids, and they're limiting their own time on there. There's mass exoduses of people who are like, no, I'm just getting off of platforms. Or even if it's not all the platforms, it's like, I'm just getting off of the ones I don't use anymore. Like, I don't need to be on TikTok. I don't need to be on Facebook. I'll still use Instagram because I need that for work. Those kinds of things. And so I think people are pushing away from it. And I do think that it's changing. Our relationship is going to change with it. It needs to change with it. And I think Mark Zuckerberg sees it. And I can't speak for Elon Musk because I have no idea what he's doing. Like, he stepped in, he's trying to charge people $8 to be verified. And then he's like retweeting like misinformation right off the bat. So he's just kind of like orbiting space right now, which is like what he wants to be doing, I guess.
Can't quite figure out which direction to go, can he?
Yeah, he got the keys to the kingdom, and he's like trying to do it all at once.
Yeah.
But I do think it's more than a market correction. I do think there's a change that's starting to happen, and I think it's good.
Yeah. So, Joel, is this officially the beginning of the end of social media as we know it?
I think it is the end of social media as we know it. I think what's happening is a correction in strategy. These different organizations are starting to lay people off so that they can bring on different positions to redirect where they're going. The veil has been lifted back. People know what social media is. Elon Musk had even tweeted this. The reason he claims he's charging $8 a month for Twitter Blue and all of that is to make people less of the product and to actually make Twitter the product that you use. And I think that there's something at least interesting about that. But I think that this is a change in course because people know that the old method of using social media is on its way out. I think we're still going to be the product. I'm just not exactly sure how, but I think that's what's happening. It's a re-strategizing of how these networks are going to be used and leveraged. For better or for worse, time will tell. I have my opinion of where I'd put the over-under, probably for worse, but I've been wrong before. The Packers got blown out by the Lions, and that's my life. So don't go to me for advice.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, in fact, I'm going to take points away based on just that last fact alone. Alex, do you think that this is just how the tech industry works? Like, they just expand when they have success, and then they like pull back when it gets thin?
I've been in, as you were sitting there saying literally just that, it kind of hit me. It reminds me of the oil company. I live in Houston. And my Theo has been a part of it. That's the reason why we even came to Houston. It's a big part of it. And it's up and down, sideways, backways. And I think that honestly, I think we're just hitting the starting point with social media and how it affects you and so forth. And from advertising, kind of go down the list. So the setbacks is a big part of like what we were just talking about, as in, COVID, all the different stuff, and like readjusting. But if it's not going to be this app, then it's going to be some other app or something along those lines. Social media is here to stay one way or another. It's just going to, which one is I'm explaining how the only one know how to say it from my world. Which one is going to pop and which one is not, which one is like everybody's going for and so forth. That's where I think we're going to end up going. And I think those head, top places, if I can think of something like that, I'm positive they're thinking, okay, let's try this. What's going on? Who wants this? Who wants that? That's what I personally believe is going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I would totally agree with you that there's an evolution going on. Bobby, do you think this is just par for the course in like the digital space? You know, like unless you're making like a hard, good product, right? Unless you're a car company, that there's just a chance that you are going to be relevant until you're not because you're connected to the whims of the masses.
Yeah, the Ron Swanson in me just says, yeah, let the market do its thing, and it's gonna. But I'm also like, man, like 11,000 employees from Facebook. Like,
yeah, that's big numbers.
What were they doing? Like, how many people are on payroll and how many people are actually working or doing like seriously contributive stuff that you can lay off that many people? So I don't know. I'm a philosopher. I'm not that smart when it comes to some of the industry stuff. But yeah, do you remember on Netflix when they had that documentary, The Social Dilemma?
Mm-hmm.
It like blew the minds of all sorts of like the older demographic. Like the principal of the school I worked at was like traumatized by that movie, and like our generation and younger are kind of like, yeah, like no kidding, Sherlock. Like we've been living in this experiment. Like it woke, I think, a certain demographic up. The rest of us can anecdotally speak to, yeah, life's kind of better when I regulate this industry, the social media, or when I just opt out of it altogether. I'm just a happier, more integrated human person. Mm-hmm. So I think what Joel was saying was like there's a recalibration happening. I don't know what it looks like in the future. Time will tell.
Yeah, that's fair. And to your point earlier about what all those people are doing, my philosopher brain always goes the opposite direction and goes, with the amount of money that Meta has been pulling in, why are they laying off 11,000 people? Can they really not repurpose some of these people in like to change direction? Or do they really, I mean, are we just stuck in that world of corporate greed where it's like, well, we already spent the $140 billion that we had. We couldn't possibly keep 11,000 people in a revenue stream. But I digress. Wrong place, wrong time. U.S. women's basketball star Brittany Griner is being transferred to a Russian penal colony to serve a 9-year sentence for possession of hash oil. She was found to be in possession of the hash oil while traveling home to the United States, was arrested, and tension has mounted between the U.S. and Russia, especially over Russia's invasion of Ukraine and her trial, subsequent conviction, and one more twist being the one more twist in the relationship between these countries. The U.S. continues to protest without having any actual effect. This is not the first time a U.S. citizen has gotten in trouble for violating laws in a country that we have had tense relations with. Otto Warmbier, is that right? Was arrested, imprisoned, and eventually died in North Korea after trying to steal a propaganda poster from a hotel. So, Joel, is this an issue with Russia, or do U.S. citizens just need to be more careful when traveling abroad?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, but this situation with Brittany is absolutely tragic. She is a good athlete, a good person, and she wound up being really in the wrong place at the wrong time because she was detained as Russia was invading Ukraine, and unfortunately has become a total pawn. I mean, like even under messed up U.S. drug policy, 9 years for possession of hash oil is outlandish. Like, right? Yeah. And so this is 100% pawn in a system, and it's tragic because we got to remember, why was she in Russia? She was playing on a Russian basketball team. Like, this is not even a person who is like obviously she's U.S. citizen, she's not like anti-U.S., but this is a person who was like an athlete for Russia, like in Russia.
Right.
And so it's
they asked her to go there.
it's total pawn in a bigger game. So yeah, I think U.S. citizens, whenever you travel abroad, need to be aware of the country you're going to and things that could get you in trouble. However, this situation is 100% political and absolutely tragic. And I hope that the U.S. is doing all they can to bring her back. And I hope and pray for that, because this is absolute wrong place, wrong time. It's tragic.
Yeah, Alex, is it fair that citizens are used as pawns in larger political games like this? I mean, it certainly seems like when there's two superpowers at odds, like this is the kind of stuff that they do pretty commonly.
No, I mean, it's absolutely wrong every way, shape, or form. I will say this part because I was debating if I should. I've lived in Germany as a kid for 3 years. I remember traveling to the Berlin Wall and going to the communist side. And I remember, and I went with my father, and I remember him telling me, he was like, look, don't look at anybody, don't touch nothing. He was like, we're visitors here. Don't you say nothing to me. I remember him giving us this talk, bro. It scared me, like put the fear of God in me. I'm not talking like I mean that. And the reason why I bring that up is I think like sometimes as Americans, a good thing is we're comfortable, right? We're American. It's good. But I don't think people realize how other countries look at us sometimes. If you travel a lot, you'll get the gist, of what it is that I'm saying and so forth. I'm a big advocate moving around so much. If I'm in somebody else's space, another city, whatever it may be, with their cultural norms per se, I'm going to be aware of them, and I'm going to be very, very, very cautious and so forth. Especially, look at what's going on. Even before, let's just throw out the whole invasion and everything that was going on before then. We have not had good relationships with Russia in a long time. So, yeah, she was over there for business and everything. And I want to make sure I say I'm not blaming her at all by far. It's so messed up, man. I'm just saying something for us that we can learn from this is, bro, watch where you're going. Watch where you're going. Your norms may not be the norms where you're going over there, bro. And this is a good example. She's famous and she's still over there. What are you going to do with me and you? I don't know him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we don't even make the news. Right?
Yeah,
it's just like,
man.
sorry.
Yeah, I saw this morning how they sentenced her and everything. I was like, man, 9 years at a work camp in Russia? That ain't work camp over here, bro. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
a whole different deal.
Sorry, man. Yeah, sorry, brother. Yeah, but yeah. So no, I don't think it's right at all.
Yeah. Bobby, what can the U.S. try to do to remedy situations like this? Just put up travel advisories so that more citizens are fully aware of where they're headed and what the ramifications are?
Nukes, man. Just nuke it all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I'm like, what would
the
Jonathan
out of context soundbite for the night goes to.
Yeah.
What would-
he's been living in Texas. Yeah. Just blow everything off the map. Yeah. That's what we do.
Giddy up. So what would Jonathan say right now? That's what I was channeling.
Right.
What can the U.S. do more? I mean, this is where kind of what Alex was saying was, we're used to like the American system of rights and what we have, and I can, mouth off at my president, I can do whatever. And it's like, it is not like that around the world. And so at the very least, like it just kind of shows awareness. Like everyone that's watching her sentence is like, holy cow, like the rights and freedoms we have here in America are not like they don't just happen like because of the soil you're standing on around the world. It's like, no, we've come to a place in the country, as fallen as it is, like we have these rights and other parts of the world don't. So be aware when you're traveling in someone else's homeland. And I think the U.S. just has to try to keep being diplomatic, has to try to keep highlighting the situation. But again, I don't know like legally what you can do in terms of working with the Russian court system. Like Alexander Solzhenitsyn or Father Walter Zizek, these men who were sentenced to the gulags and lived to tell the tale, and were transformed by that hardship. And so I don't know where her story ends, and I don't have the wisdom or experience to say what the U.S. ought to do. As if nothing else, just don't let up.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, that's fair. I would certainly agree with you there. Darnell,
and if nothing else, nukes.
Nukes.
Yeah.
And let's go back to the nukes.
Prayers and
To
everything
restate
don't
my
work.
thesis.
To go back to my original point.
In conclusion,
weapons.
Tweetable moment.
Darnell, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I had very specific instructions from my parents that when I was visiting a friend's house, I was to be on my best behavior. And I can't help but feel that this is sort of the same general mentality because if you are in a different place where there's potentially different rules, that you have to be on, you got to have your head on a swivel if you're gonna, make sure that you are successful. Is it really as simple as that? Is that it needs to be sort of just a more out there and known thing, that's how people should behave?
I think so. I mean, I think of growing up, like the expectations that I knew my parents had of myself and my sisters. Like I was afraid to embarrass them, like out in public. Like I was like, I'm not like, oh, I'm afraid like I'm gonna get whooped if I do something bad. Like I was like, no, I don't want to embarrass my family. And so that really, like, for better or for worse, we'll see what mental scars I have in the future, right? But for better or for worse, like that is like the way I approached the way I acted in public with my family there or not. And I think the same goes when you're traveling abroad. I think of the stereotypes or the way people view Americans abroad is borderline comical, right? And like we don't have the best track record. I think of a couple years back of like Jake Paul's whole fiasco in Japan, and people are just like, "Well, that's America."
Right.
Like to the point where like if I'm overseas and people ask where I'm from, I say Texas. And people are just like, "Oh, okay, I know." And like Texas is
because maybe it's not America.
Yeah, and they're impressed.
Because it is different.
Right? Yeah, you say Texas is like cowboy guns, and you're just like, yes and yes. And then like for some reason, like the America part of it doesn't hit for them. But like it's a thing, right? Like I get a very different response if I say I'm from Texas than I do if I'm from America. Because they have these preconceived notions that Americans are selfish, they're greedy, they're pushy. In Asia, like you're not supposed to be forcing eye contact on people. And in America, like we're trained that eye contact is how you show respect. And like, so we're there like shaking people's hands, like staring them in the eyes. And they're just like, hey, yo, whoa, watch your space, man. Like, we're just not cognizant of those things. And I think like, if you're going to be traveling to somebody, like if you're going to go to somebody's house, you need to know their rules. If you're going to go to somebody's country, you got to know their norms too. Like you can't be stepping in on like, walking in with muddy shoes on their, clean pressed carpet. You got to know what's up. Right.
Yep.
And so do that due diligence as you're getting ready, as you're getting prepped for, going to your friend's house or going to another country.
Yep. That's all a fair assessment. And ultimately, I would agree with the administration saying that, gosh, we certainly hope that, some communication opens up, post-election in order to continue to try to work that situation out. All right, moving on. Wolves. A French cardinal, Cardinal Jean-Pierre Ricard, revealed in a letter that he sexually abused a 14-year-old girl over 3 decades ago while he was a parish priest in France. The revelation is compounded by the role of the cardinal in overseeing the organization within the Vatican that investigates and sanctions priests involved in abuse cases. Furthermore, this cardinal in particular is one of the electors of the Pope. Pope Francis has stated that he has a zero-tolerance policy for priest abusers. Alex, there are a lot of layers to this. How do you even wrap your head around this stuff with the church?
Being a convert, I'm kind of used to this.
That is unfortunate.
Because I'm not trying to be funny in them, but I'm
not trying to either.
Yeah.
It's the state of the thing.
Right. I always find myself, I'll be on an airplane and people will ask somehow my faith and what I'm doing on the airplane comes up, and I'm always finding myself saying, I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't even Catholic at the time. The reason why I'm saying that is, one, I think that it is good that it's coming out, especially in today's world. It's one of those things that's like, hey man, look, you might as well, because, kind of the safe face and so forth. I think Pope Francis has his work cut out for him. Seeing from what he's done before, it's going to be interesting to see how he handles this situation. I would personally like to see and hear, what happens, and total side note. If anybody knows the family, the girl, whatever it may be, please let her know. As I was hearing, I was praying for her and so forth. Sexual abuse is real and it has lasting scars. And hence we're sitting here talking about it. So yeah, it's ugly. The other part that I get to when I talk to people is like the church, has people, and people are bad, we're horrible. you know. If you are Catholic, if you're not Catholic watching this, please know, we're perfect because, God blessed us and gave us this, but we're imperfect because it has me and you in it. So, yeah, I mean, it's horrible, but I am glad that it's starting to come out and so forth. I think that stuff, once it's out, this is my counseling side coming in. Once it's out, we can start healing. And so that's one of the reasons why I want to know. I would love to know how, what is going to happen with him.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Bobby, it's an opportunity for you to go nukes twice in a row. So
there he goes. But the Vatican too. So how's that going to work, bro?
That's right. It's not really that type of. It's not really a scalpel.
Yeah. I bid. My last answer. Man, it's tragic. It's heartbreaking. And just when you think like we're getting some traction and cleaning out the church, it's like more comes up. And I think the French church is going through something like what we did in America like 10 years ago, where it just is like you're feeling beaten down and it's discouraging. But it needs to come out. Like you need to root the stuff out for authentic healing to happen. I believe I was doing some reading about this situation, and there's several French bishops who are culpable, or there's investigations going on. This guy in particular did seek the young girl out. Now she's a woman, and apologized, asked her for her forgiveness. I don't know what happened. So I'm like, well, at least there's some attempted reconciliation there. It's demonic, man. It's demonic when you look at like devil's just not letting up. Like, and there's something scandalous again when a good man or woman falls, but especially a priest or a bishop. It's like, you were the chosen one. Like you were supposed to be the best of us.
The voice was awesome. The voice.
Yeah. Thank you. There's this quote attributed to St. John Chrysostom that the road to hell is paved with the bones of priests, and the skulls of bishops are the lampposts that light the path. I don't know if he actually said it. It's one of those like St. Francis said this. It's like, no, he didn't. But it's it's just one of those like it's a quote. So I'll stick it to St. John Chrysostom. Yeah, they just there's on the one hand there's the salaciousness of the news and all this, and then there's the call of the Christian to pray for everyone involved, for healing to take place, and it to be that this doesn't happen again. And that's where we all play a part in the prayer and the calling for transparency. Yeah, it's tragic.
Yeah, for sure. Darnell, if anything, what can we do as the laity in the face of these revelations?
I mean, I think the first thing we start with is we pray, right? We need to pray for those affected. We need to pray for those who committed these atrocious acts, because we're all called to healing, and we're still all called to Christ. And so we need to recognize that. I still think justice needs to be served. But I also think that we need to recognize that historically as church, we have committed this. And this is, in my mind, I'm like, this is just the next thing in a long lineage of atrocities committed at the hands of people within the Catholic Church. And I know for myself, coming to where I'm at in my faith life, there's a lot of reconciling I had to do mentally with how do I believe in something like this in this church if these things are happening? And what I came down to is we can't trust, our belief is not in the priests, our belief is not in the bishops, our belief is in Christ, and Christ is the one who can change those things. And because these things are happening, these are opportunities for us to work on heroic virtue. So for those who are priests, to be model priests, to in the face of all this, to do the right thing every time. For those of us in laity, it's to seek justice for this, and then to find ways to figure out how we ensure that this stuff doesn't happen before. But this is not the first time it's happened. It's not going to be the last time it happens, unfortunately. But we need to be resilient people. We need to come together and we need to pray and we need to work as a people to make sure that stuff like this isn't happening. And what does that look like? I don't know, right? Like I think it's going to be things that are happening on a parish level, on a diocesan level, on the national levels, and then on like a international levels, right? It's going to look different across the way, but like parishes need to have plans in place. Schools need to have plans in place. Dioceses need to have plans in place. And it needs to be communicated well and effectively to those of like, hey, if you see something, you need to say something. And then this is the protocol to vetting, to making sure like, hey, this checks out or this didn't actually happen. And then making sure that people are held accountable for their actions and people are healed from, from those things. So it's almost too much work. It's too much work for us, but that's where Christ comes in.
Yeah, agreed. Joel, where do you start the conversation with people in the face of this kind of stuff? I know that I know plenty of people personally that this is the largest issue that keeps them away from the faith. So where do you start the middle ground conversation? Joel, you may be muted.
In all of my life using Zoom over the past year, you would think.
Amateur hour.
You'll be fine.
I would know.
It's because of that time change that threw you off.
That's what it was.
The thing is, we're doing. See, the time for the show changed for me.
Exactly.
And not for everybody else.
Exactly.
There's two things. I agree with that thing. Everything that everybody has said. I think there's very practical things that we are called to do out of virtue and out of mission that have to be done to remedy this. There are institutional changes that have to take place. There's accountability that must happen, and there is justice that must happen for the crimes that have been committed, without a doubt. I think, in the case of this cardinal, he said he met with the family to apologize. I am concerned about that because I don't know if the family wanted that or if this person wanted that. To just say, well, I did that, and then he said, and now I'm taking a personal retreat. Okay, great, but maybe a lifetime of penance is the church sanction that should happen. But now this is over 30 years ago, so maybe there is nothing legally that can happen anymore. That's possible, but there has to be justice here. I want to touch on the spiritual side of this because I think that is absolutely important. For those of you who are not aware, in Catholic tradition, there's a prayer called the St. Michael prayer, and it was composed by Pope Leo XIII. The reason it was composed is because in the late 1800s, Pope Leo had a vision of Satan threatening to destroy the church, and then essentially unleashing power, saying he was going to unleash a particular power over clergy within the vision over the next 75 to 100 years, which is most of the 20th century in the 1900s. That is where so much of this filth has existed. And that's not to say it stopped at the year 2000 by any means, because certainly there have been things that have happened since the year 2000 and continue to. But the Pennsylvania report, this stuff in France, a lot of it was concentrated, and this disgustingness happened over the 20th century. That's not to take away human culpability or say anything like the devil made me do it. But I think in a spiritual world, we have to recognize that there are evil forces at play, and that we have been given grace to resist those evil forces in our conscience. And we've been given a responsibility to hold one another up, to resist temptation and to resist evil. And that's what this is. It is absolutely evil. It has blown my mind since I've been to the Basilica in New York City, in Washington, D.C. If you've ever been to the Basilica in Washington, D.C., there is a picture of Jesus on that back wall. That is not a happy Jesus. It's kind of like Judgment Day Jesus. How Cardinal McClure could celebrate Mass in that church, in front of that image of Jesus, I don't understand it, unless there's one thing that exists. And this is where it's going to get maybe a little bit heavy. I don't care. He could only celebrate. This is what I've come to. He could only celebrate in front of that image of Jesus, which is Judgment Day Jesus, if he did not believe in hell, if he did not think hell was real, if he did not think eternal consequences existed for the sins and the evil we commit on this earth. And it's not to say that anybody is beyond God's mercy by any means, but I think we have to start accepting that there is a spiritual reality in which we exist, and that there are things we can do that ought to make us fear hell, that ought to make us fear the devil, and ought to make us fear the devil and our fellow man and woman, our fellow humans who we exist in this world in, and to do what we can to pull them out of the temptation to evil and sin, because it's real, it exists. And I think that part of our response to this as people of faith has to be certainly to pray, and then to ask, Lord, what are you asking me to do not to combat the problem, but to name it for what it is, to fight evil, and to stand up against it.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good answer.
Amen.
In fact, that was such a good answer that we're going to put the nukes away on this one because of as a collective group, I think you guys did very well. Fine. Okay. So our final topic here is I want to be a billionaire. Here is how this works. We're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to go around really quickly, and everybody is going to get 30 seconds on the timer to talk about how you would spend $1 billion given the opportunity. If you're unaware of it, this week in Powerball, it was nearly a $2 billion jackpot. It went to the father-in-law of a former NFL player. None of us won. So what would you do with this money? And feel free to, the good answers are great, but also have a little fun with it. I mean, do not give every single dime of it to some organization, unless it's Little Flower Media, in which case we're happy to do good in the world. I mean, that's totally fine if you want to give us $1.7 billion. Okay, Elon? All right, so we are going to start up at the top with Bobby Angel. 30 seconds on the clock. How to spend $1 billion. Good luck.
I would get a sweet house here in Texas with some acres and be able to get near water with my private jet really quickly. And would set some money aside for my kiddos and make sure my parents are good. And then trick out my local parish with whatever they needed. The most amazing youth room on wheels you ever saw.
You could pimp my ride like with the church bus. That would be pretty awesome.
Am I out of time?
You are out of time. Dope. That was perfect. Well done. All right, Darnell, 30 seconds on the clock. Good luck.
All right. I would retire my dad and my father-in-law, but still give them something to do because they're both workaholics, so would not actually want to retire, but would still want something to do. Then I'd give my mom and my mother-in-law infinite budget for all their church projects. They're church ladies at this point, but my mom's retired. She's my in-laws a stay-at-home mom, so that's all they spend their time doing, and they're going to do amazing things for the church. And then buy a nice house and buy an evergreen skate park. They're awesome.
Oh,
cool! Check them out.
Oh, sweet! I like it.
Whole park.
Yeah, going off script a little bit there. Cool. All right, Joel, 30 seconds. $1 billion. Good luck. Joel, you're muted.
Go. There we go.
And he gains no time.
How is that? It's because my kids are yelling in the background.
Time's going.
$8 a month.
I'm going to restart your timer. Yeah, I think it'll be better. I think we should restart your timer because I already knew that you were animated. The downside is that I have to let it run out, and I'm going to give you 0 points for this, and we're just going to move on to Alex. That's an elaborate prank. See how that works?
Turn forfeited.
I'm just messing with you, Joel. All right, here you go, buddy. Go for it.
Those friends are turning into frenemies right there.
Immediately. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get Twitter Blue. I'm going to get verified and pay $8 a month for that. That's the first thing I'm going to do. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give a bunch of money to my old middle school to help them build a brand new wing where they're going to hold gym class, and they're also going to have the detention center there. They're going to name it after me, and it's going to be fantastic because that's where I spend most of my time. Then I'll probably buy a nice house. I'll give some money to the church. And, after that, I think I'm going to buy myself a lifetime supply of really good steaks and just eat a bunch of meat.
Nice.
And focus water.
What would you do with $1 billion? I would just eat a bunch of meat. That's an amazing answer. Thanks, Ron Swanson. Another reference. All right, Alex, you have 30 seconds on the clock. Good luck.
All right, so this is exactly what I would do. First, I would open up chains of boys' homes all in major cities, train both missionaries and so forth. I definitely have like a school for all of that. Pay off all of my bills. Shout out to Sally Mae. All that house, all the different stuff. Train some of my old friends and so forth in education wise and so forth, especially some who've been some family members been incarcerated, all the different stuff. Training for them to work with kids and so forth. Boom.
Nice.
Cool.
Well done. I think you guys all completed that task successfully. I would like to throw out that none of you would choose to buy an island or your own country. That is relatively high on the list. Nobody
That's
decided.
villainy.
That's why people like us don't win then.
Yeah, right, exactly. Because you
That's
know
why.
we don't think big enough or small enough, depending on how it would be. Nobody decided that they would just make sure that Elon actually got to Mars and be like, here's an extra billion. Make sure you leave right now. That's definitely on the list.
And stay.
And
you know?
yeah, and then finally, just enter that $1 billion directly into a bank and then cash it out and then put it back and cash it out just to watch people freak out and individual institutions collapse. Those are some pretty fun ones.
Nobody's Scrooge McDucked either, though.
Nobody's taking a bath in a giant pool full of
diving in
cash. It wouldn't work that way. Everyone would.
I just
want
to print it all out in ones just to hold it.
That's what I was about to say. I was about to say one or quarters.
You'd have $1 billion. Yeah. You could get a forklift. It'd be great. All right. Well, tonight's episode was fantastic, but Darnell Miller Darnell Lorenzo is our champion this evening. Way to put a home run on it, Darnell. I'm going to add another 30 seconds to the clock, and Darnell now gets 30 seconds to either shamelessly self-promote or regular promote anything that he wants to talk about. Go ahead, Darnell.
Well, so this is my second victory ever, and the last time I didn't shamelessly self-promote, so I will this time.
Yes.
So we have a podcast that we're working on called Protagonists of Change. We have season 2 that came out earlier this semester. We're about 4 or 5 episodes in, depending on when you guys see this. It's a storytelling podcast. We're going to hear from people who are telling stories about their life, about their faith, about their encounters with Christ. And it is fantastic. These are stories filled with hope and mercy. Check it out. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And McClure's on this season. So
oh my
if you want to hear his
goodness.
story, check it out.
That is ridiculous. That was a double promotion. You really overlapped there. I'm very proud of you. I dropped the link to the podcast in the chat at ustmacstudios.com. So you guys absolutely should check it out, and we'll promote it over the next couple days on stream as well. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us for tonight's Around the Halo. It was fantastic having you. Bobby, it's been too long. Darnell, it's also been too long. Joel, I see you twice a week. No big deal. Alex, great to meet you, man. Thank you very much for doing it. We really appreciate it. And we'll get this episode posted, and we'll copy all you guys on socials and do that whole thing. Quick update from here at the Bearded Blevins stream team and Little Flower Media. We are not streaming tomorrow, but we are on Friday morning, or at least John is, for Family Fortnite Friday. And we have a variety of things in the works that we're excited to talk to you guys about. So we will see you shortly. Everybody have a great evening, and we will catch you next time. Later.